that a tariff on Canada is a tax on the American people.
Irrespective of that, we're focusing on Canadian products.
With the looming threat of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs, a Buy Canadian movement has picked up across the country. You may have noticed it when you go into grocery stores or supply shops, a tag that tells you if the product you're about to pick up is made in Canada.
Boycott American companies completely.
Once taken for granted, the allegiance is eroding. Canadians spent a lot of money on American restaurant franchises for years, which helped them expand. Now, however, the roles are reversed. Customers have reached their breaking point due to rising costs, decreasing portions, and service that no longer seems worthwhile. As a result, the retreat is so abrupt that it has spent more than $150 million in a single year. In this video, we expose the top 15 chains that are losing Canadian consumers due to a single issue that was so explosive that it destroyed even enduring loyalty. 15. That recognizable blue sign used to illuminate IHOP highway exits, serving as a beacon for cross-border travelers seeking solace in a dish of bacon and eggs or a stack of pancakes. IHOP used to be a dependable breakfast destination for Canadians, affordable for families and substantial enough to start the day. That reputation has fallen apart. Many people are served limp, flavorless bacon, rubbery eggs, and sticky syrup dispensers in place of comfort food. Fruit that is marketed as fresh frequently comes in a can. The turning point occurred when expectations changed, even though the syrup is primarily corn syrup with artificial sweetness added. With boutique restaurants serving locally sourced fruit, cage-free eggs, and menus focused on freshness and wellness, brunch culture in Canada has taken off. In contrast, IHOP stayed stagnant, depending on large portions and heavy plates that have been treated. Canadian tourists aren't afraid to express their dissatisfaction anymore. Complaints flooded travel blogs and review websites in 2024, in a TikTok that contrasted a $17 Canadian brunch with a $26 IHOP breakfast in New York went viral, making the American meal appear to be cafeteria fare. It's not just the food that's the issue. For many Canadians, IHOP embodies an antiquated idea of dining that is at odds with contemporary norms. With their creative menus and ethical sourcing, independent cafes in Buffalo, Spokane, and Detroit are enticing tourists. Even though IHOP bills itself as international, Canadians now consider it to be a destination worth visiting. If IHOP's appeal has been unsuccessful, diners have lost considerably more than another chain. The trust that formerly characterized its brand has been eroded. 14. In the past, Subway was the ultimate road trip essential. Fresh toppings heaped high, a sandwich on the run, and a feeling of control over the ingredients. However, for Canadians traveling to the United States, that pledge has fallen through. The bread frequently has a rubbery taste. Before it reaches the counter, the lettuce wilts. Furthermore, there is no authentic flavor in the meats. Even though the sign still reads, "Eat fresh," many tourists believe it is misleading. The story is revealed by the numbers. Canadian tourist sales at U.S. Subway restaurants have decreased by about 40%. The damage was further exacerbated by a string of exposes who exposed failing inspections, high salt levels, and dubious meat origins. The verdict was sealed by the contrast with Canadian outlets. Many Subways in Canada had covert upgrades, components, and tidied up their appearance. Franchises across the border compromised on quality, reduced amounts, and took shortcuts. However, if Subway's taste let Canadians down, the following chain's pricing turned them off. Number 13. Five Men. Five Guys was a guilty delight for years. The grease-stained paper bag, the endless fries and burgers. Tourists viewed it as a luxury worth the trouble. That time is rapidly disappearing. The quantities are now smaller, the food is saltier, and the price shock is unavoidable. Before beverages or dessert, a single meal can now cost over $25, making travelers question if it's worth the money. Canadians have taken note, since they frequently strike a balance between value and enjoyment. Videos of receipts from cross-border visits, contrasted to fresh gourmet burger establishments back home, were used by influencers to start exposing the price increases. In Toronto, a $13 locally produced burger looked much better than a $19 Five Guys burger, and the side-by-side video received over 1 million views. Canadians flooded the comment section, accusing the chain of being overrated and overpriced. It's not just the price. Many complain about unreliable service, too salty fries, and undersized patties. What was previously endearing in its simplicity now seems overdone and out of date, as Canadian companies such as Hero Certified and Burgers prosper with fresher ingredients and cheaper costs. Five Men relied heavily on nostalgia, but Canadians are not alone in not believing it anymore. Even familiarity cannot prevent a chain from slipping behind, as demonstrated by the following brand on the list. Olive Garden, number 12. Canadians made fun of Olive Garden for years with its corny tagline, "When you're here, you're family." played along, viewing it as a cost-effective method of obtaining large quantities of Italian cuisine. However, the allure has faded. Once a novelty, the unending breadsticks now feel like a front for mushy pasta, obviously frozen chicken, and sauces that taste like they were straight out of a jar. The chain's demise resulted from its inability to change. Olive Garden continued to follow its antiquated strategy as Canada embraced farm-to-table eateries and genuine regional cuisine. As a result, Canadian visitation fell by 26% in 2024. Complaints about the food's blandness, high sodium content, and high cost are common in internet forums. In the meantime, Italian eateries in Canada are thriving with imported olive oil, fresh basil, and homemade pasta. Returning visitors now caution one another against visiting Olive Garden, calling it tourist traps with little intrinsic worth. The company that used to be all about comfort now seems like a thing of the past. Furthermore, the next chain is dealing with something far more sinister if Olive Garden is feeling worn out. Canadians refuse to ignore this controversy. The 11th is Chick-fil-A. Canadians were intrigued when Chick-fil-A initially gained popularity north of the border. Eager to eat the renowned chicken sandwich, many people lined up to see what all the excitement was about, but their curiosity was sated. The meal could be crunchy, however, the image is damaged. Chick-fil-A garnered media attention for its political contributions and position on LGBTQ issues. Canadians paid attention and did not forget, but some American diners went on. Inclusion is a social norm rather than a marketing catchphrase in Canada. The chain was having trouble attracting cross-border customers as a result of that cultural clash. According to surveys, Canadian visitors' intended trips have decreased by 38% in the past year, and many of them stated that they wouldn't support the brand even if they were hungry. The allure is lost when you factor in the growing costs. Combination dinners now cost over $15. And if a chain can be brought down by controversy, another once reliable name is being brought down by deteriorating quality. 10. Once referred to as a neighborhood bar and grill, Applebee's appears to be a deserted neighborhood to Canadian tourists. The menu is uninspiring, the food is unmemorable, and the decor seems stuck in a bygone era. Cocktails are diluted, appetizers taste reheated, and entrees are mass-produced. It is not just the food that is declining. Customers are leaving due to rising costs and declining service quality. Bellingham, Plattsburgh, and Niagara Falls all reported understaffed and overburdened facilities. In a 2025 TikTok that went viral, Canadian teenagers were shown leaving an Applebee's mid-meal after waiting 30 minutes for frozen wings. One of them commented that they could have eaten better meals at a service stop. Both the sentiment and that statement stuck. Craft pubs, fusion restaurants, or anything that offers new value for money are now preferred by Canadian tourists. The next name on this list, however, is plunging headlong into nostalgia fatigue if Applebee's is quietly disappearing. Dairy Queen is at number 9. Many Canadians associate Dairy Queen with their early years of summer cones and blizzards. Cross-border travel is rapidly erasing those memories. Today, tourists encounter burgers that taste bland after being microwaved, freezer-burn cakes, and melted ice cream. Franchise cuts and outdated technologies behind the counter, the fault lies with the equipment. While American dairy farms are failing, Canadian Dairy Queens have managed to preserve their quality. Canadian spending in U.S. stores has decreased by 35% over the past 12 months. The harm was sealed by viral photos of melted cones, sticky tables, and uncaring employees. Thousands of similar complaints were sparked by a terrifying TikTok story about a family in Quebec. Dairy Queen's dependence on nostalgia is backfiring in an era where consumers seek curated experiences and clean ingredients. Previously a common occurrence during summer road vacations, waiting now feels more like a letdown. The next chain is losing Canadians at a startling rate, even if Dairy Queen is declining slowly. The 8th item is Buffalo Wild Wings. As soon as you enter Buffalo Wild Wings, the noise starts. Fans screaming, TVs blaring, and staff fighting to be heard. Many Canadians find the experience to be daunting rather than motivating. It used to be regarded as a vibrant sporting venue, but these days it seems crowded and expensive. The cuisine doesn't assist. The beer selection is unimaginative. The wings frequently arrive lukewarm, and the sauces seem sweet. In 2025, visits from Canadian tourists are declining by over 30%. A Winnipeg couple reported spending $72 on 2 orders of wings, fries, and a pitcher of beer, causing them to state that they could have spent less on a whole steak meal at home. A growing number of reviews point out unclean restrooms, subpar service, and food that doesn't live up to the glitzy advertisements. In the meantime, Canadian microbreweries and pubs flourish due to their stronger flavors, more hygienic settings, and more affordable costs. Experience was the foundation of Buffalo Wild Wings' success but it now feels draining. Additionally, for Canadians, once you pass the border, stopping is no longer worthwhile. The seventh is Denny's. It felt like the beginning of something positive when you saw that bright yellow sign off the highway. Denny's was more than just a rest stop for Canadians traveling great distances. It was customary. Pancakes at 2 in the morning. Chipped mugs and coffee without a bottom. And the feeling that there was a booth waiting wherever you went. But the allure is no longer there. Denny's feeling worn out today. The dish does not deliver on its promise of comfort. Toast is burned, pancakes come dry, and sausages are so manufactured that they all taste the same. Wherever you go, the warmth has been removed from the booths. The syrup containers are chipped and sticky, and the ambience is more like a cheap waiting room than a friendly dining room. Canadians have realized that what used to be a reliable ritual now feels like regret on a platter. According to a 2025 poll, visits from in a single year, Canadian passenger numbers fell by more than 40%. Many people complain that the experience is lackluster and expensive. When a couple from Vancouver spent about $40 for 2 Grand Slams, the tale went viral on the internet. Both servings were served cold in Buffalo. Never again was how they concluded their review. That article was amplified by the tens of thousands of times it was shared in Canadian travel communities. The sixth is TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays used to feel like the unofficial start of the weekend. Memorabilia-lined walls, cheerful employees, and hot dishes of food being brought past lively tables. For Canadians, it served as a destination for laid-back evenings out on cross-border excursions, offering a taste of American enjoyment that never failed. The excitement has subsided into background noise, and those tables are now half empty. The main source of the issue is the menu. It is stuck in a bygone period and primarily consists of salty appetizers, greasy burgers, and sides that taste directly out of a freezer bag. What used to feel decadent now seems uninspired. There isn't much to celebrate for Canadian diners who want for freshness, diversity, and improved sourcing. Nor has the atmosphere kept pace. Like a stage set that hasn't been updated in decades, the brand's trademark festive feeling suddenly feels old. Competitors, however, have changed and now provide locally inspired meals. Cleaner aesthetics, inventive cocktails, and ingredients derived from pans. The restaurant industry and Canadians moved on, but TGI Fridays remained in the hopes that nostalgia would keep it afloat. However, if TGI Fridays appears to be stuck in the past, the subsequent chain feels like it is appropriate for a museum. Cracker Barrel is number 5. For many years, the road trip experience included a visit at Cracker Barrel. Checkerboards were waiting by the fire, the porch was lined with rocking chairs, and the menu was dominated by country ham and biscuits. It provided Canadian tourists with a taste of rustic charm wrapped around Americana. However, that allure has faded. What used to feel comfortable now seems outdated. The interior design resembles a time capsule. The cuisine is less comfortable and more processed. Diners are not happy when plates are piled high with canned veggies and fried meats. Instead of sentimental, Panda Express comes in at number 4. In the past, a scoop of sticky orange chicken was a thrilling novelty during lengthy journeys through American shopping centers and rest areas. When options were limited, Panda Express promised speedy, well-known Chinese-American cuisine. However, what was initially inserted as convenience has turned into a representation of what Canadians no longer tolerate. Clutchingly sweet are the sources. In trays that sit for much too long, the noodles clump together and the vegetables go limp. It gives you exhaustion instead of flavor. In a time when Canadian food trucks and fusion restaurants are offering strong, genuine flavors that are freshly produced to order, Panda Express comes across as phony and cheap. However, the disintegration of a seafood giant that was once considered almost legendary is far worse than even this degree of disappointment. Red Lobster comes in at number 3. Red Lobster didn't require much of a sales pitch for decades. Canadians who crossed the border were fully aware of they were on their way. The warm, buttery biscuits and the seafood platters alone seemed worth the journey. However, the light has faded. These days, the biscuits frequently arrive cold. The ambience is more like a bingo hall than a seafood hideaway, and the lobster is rubbery. The perception of luxury is gone, and instead are meals that seem uninspired and mass-produced. What used to be a treat has now turned into an expensive disappointment. The difficulties facing the brand have been made public. Red Lobster reported severe losses and closed its locations before declaring bankruptcy in early 2025. Canadian tourists had started to retreat long before that. Just 8% of Canadian road trippers went to Red Lobster in the last year, compared to over 30% 10 years earlier, according to a recent Ontario travel research. Second, McDonald's is one of the most well-known brands in the world. For generations, it stood for reliability. A location where the burgers and fries had the same flavor wherever you went. That constancy, however, has broken down for Canadians traveling to the United States. The fries have a distinct flavor. The burgers are delivered dead. Additionally, the eateries themselves seem underappreciated. Disorganized counters, poor lighting, and broken ice cream makers are a long cry from the slick image McDonald's established in Canada. They are leaving after travelers have noticed. In the last year, Canadian spending at U.S. McDonald's restaurants has decreased by about 30%, according to spending data. What hope do chains that were never worldwide behemoths in the first place have if McDonald's is unable to maintain its dominance? This leads us to one of the most precipitous drops of all. Outback Steakhouse comes in first. This establishment, which was once promoted as offering a taste of the Australian outback, gained notoriety for its large portions, succulent steaks, and flowering onions. It was an adventure in and of itself for Canadians heading south. However, the attraction has worn off, leaving behind a shabby resemblance to its previous form. The steaks are frequently under-seasoned or overdone when they arrive. The growing onion, which was previously the star, now feels more like an oil-soaked dare than a beautiful starter, and the sides taste pre-made. The drop has been dramatic. According to studies, 31% fewer Canadians planned to visit Outback Steakhouse in the U.S. in 2024. The sentiment is obvious. Why accept less when there are better options around?